Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. The Someone You Should Know podcast salutes musicians, authors, and interesting people. And talk about interesting people, we definitely have one on the podcast today, the co-host of a show that debuted online in the last millennium, January 1st, 1999. So it's almost 25 years that static radio has been going strong. Will you please welcome my guest today, Bob LeMent. Bob, welcome aboard.
Hey, how you doing? How's it going?
Doing well. Glad to have you on board. Let's talk about your humble beginnings, Bob. You know, what you did as a child that brought you to where you are today?
Well, that's a good question. So I would say, and I've never really thought about this too much, but, growing up, we weren't rich people. I wasn't one of the rich kids. I was kind of one of the, I wasn't a poor kid. I wasn't a rich kid. What would you call that? I don't know, somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, mid-income or something like that.
Yeah, mid-century modern kid, I guess.
Okay.
But anyway, so one of the things that I did have was a tape recorder. If you can remember, it was an old Lloyd's tape recorder, if you can remember what those were with the buttons,
Yeah. And all the C-cell batteries you went through, right?
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I'd go through 4 batteries a week. My dad says, this is getting very expensive.
I actually got a weird adapter that you can plug it into the wall and you can set the voltage. Anyway, it was a whole weird thing. I got it with birthday money or something so that I could use the recorder more, so I wouldn't have to go through so many batteries. But I had this old Lloyd's tape recorder with an external microphone, and I thought that was the best thing in the world. And I would just do little, skits and shows with my neighbor kids. Would come over and we would do a show, and kind of mimicking stuff of the day and radio and television and whatnot. And that was kind of the start, I think. And I took that thing all over the place and recorded stuff. And it was just a lot of fun. I always thought it was interesting to do it. And then, of course, you get to listen to yourself and get a kick out of what you did. And kind of the spontaneity of it all was really quite fun. And I'd say that was probably the start. And that's probably what, took me on a little bit of a path to do things.
Very good. Where was this at?
Like this.
Where was this at, Bob?
I grew up in Decatur, Illinois.
Oh, I know it well, just downstate from us in Chicago.
Yeah, from Chicago. Yeah, exactly. What was it? At one point, they used to call it Little Chicago because it had all the problems of Chicago.
Absolutely,
but glitz and glamour.
Absolutely, Millikan College there, right?
Yeah, Millikan University there. Yeah, exactly. I used to go hang out at Millikan and act like I was somebody special, but I didn't even go there.
What year was this that you were actually doing these recordings and such?
Oh gosh, probably be late 70s, early 80s.
All right, yeah,
in that time period. So. Yeah, I mean, and I would, it was always kind of silliness. So it was always trying to make, have something fun to do. Or sometimes I'd play records and just be DJ. But I always wanted to try to do something that was a little bit, at least humorous in nature. Right. And we would do these fake interviews and so forth. I don't know why I recall this while we're talking, but basically there was I think his last name was Lamphere in Springfield. It was like chief of police or something. And we'd go, I'm talking to the chief of police of Springfield here. And then, it would be this little kid, my neighbor kid. And then he would make up something about happening in the area. And then we would go on and on about, the crime in Springfield, which I don't know. As a kid, you pick up on things in the news and whatnot, and you kind of just pull them into your, kind of play world.
Absolutely.
It's fun, though.
The question I have for you, do you have any of these digitized?
I don't have them all digitized, but I did find some of them in my garage recently. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, they're on top of the freezer. haven't brought them inside yet. But my plan is eventually I will probably digitize them and add them to my collection of things.
Bob, it's strange. You and I did exactly the same thing. My dear friend Darren and I would get together like once a week, and we would do a radio show. Everything was just spur of the moment. Everything was just done improv. I'll never forget when we got a Radio Shack sound effect record. So we did the news and had different sound effects throughout the whole thing. Our whole story was based on whatever sound effect fell. It might be the sound of the war going on, and he'll start talking about some kind of war thing going on. And then we had some Hawaiian music, and it's like, I'm doing a free commercial from Hawaii or something like that. It was just hilarious. And one of the other things we had a Radio Shack intercom. And he'd go in the other room, and I'd have the other one by the thing, and that would be our phone line. That would be the guest on the phone would be on that intercom, and it's just absolutely hilarious how that was all done. And I'll never forget there was a couple of times when you could actually hear your voice crack, and I have all mine digitized. There's only about 6 or 7 of them that I was able to find, but they're all digitized and locked away in the vault.
Yeah, that's hilarious. I love those. I didn't have the intercom, but my friend did. Unfortunately, we didn't have that good idea that you had with the call-in. But I just remember we would used to run around and be on the intercom at my friend's house. We'd be like, we're up here and this is happening, and then they would be downstairs or something, and those things were a lot of fun.
Those were, absolutely. I mean, I really treasure those moments because it actually made me a good morning man down the road. And I just retired after 44 years of being on the radio, Bob. And
my gosh,
that's what this is all about. As a matter of fact, I was down the road from you in St. Louis. I was on the air in St. Louis for 24 years.
I'm in St. Louis right now.
Oh, really?
That's where I live at.
Okay, yeah. Whereabouts in St. Louis?
So I live on the east side. So I live over in the great wilds of the eastern, what do you want to call it?
Well, I lived in Collinsville.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I know Collinsville, yeah.
I've been doing.
So but I like it over here more. I used to live in the city. I lived in North City. I lived in not North City, but I lived in North County.
No, I was going to say North City. Oh, boy.
North City's kind of...
Hello, Ferguson.
I lived in South City for a while. You lived in University City.
Yeah, I love you. I love U City.
The whole metro.
City. I love the Del Mar Loop. A lot of great things going on.
So what station were you on?
I was at K-Hits 96 from 95 to 2002, and then the Bull. I was on the Bull for 4 years, and then my last 14 years or so was at WIL.
Oh, okay.
92.3 WIL. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, fantastic.
And then during all that time frame, I was working for the All-Star Radio Network downtown at 39th and Locust. Not far from Pappy's Barbecue over on Olive.
There you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, I loved my time in St. Louis. It was great. Had a lot of one thing I loved was the convenience factor that everything, all the venues were like 20 minutes away. I mean, we could leave our house in Collinsville and be at Busch Stadium in 20 minutes. And that's one thing I miss here because if you want to go to a Wrigley Field, well, gosh, you have to actually put on your camping gear and and your body armor. Right.
Yeah, no kidding. Some of the craziest driving I've ever seen was in Chicago. I mean, people would. I can't remember. It was when I was in college. We went up there for something, and we were in a traffic jam on a ramp. So I can't remember if we were on an entrance or exit ramp going from one highway to another. Mm-hmm. And people literally got tired of waiting and then just drove through the grass to get ahead of everyone onto the highway. They were tired of waiting. I've never seen that before in my life. I was like, this is the Wild West up here. I mean, just stream of cars going through the blasting through the shoulder and the grass and everything, and then cutting across. I'm like, who knows what's out there? Who knows? Why are you driving over there? It's just insane. So
now, where Bob lives and where I live is not far from two of the murder capitals of the entire world, North County or East St. Louis in your area, and Gary, Indiana, is about 20 miles to my west. So
I do bring that up from time to time. I'm like, hey, I don't know where we're at on the charts today, but we have been number one several times.
Well, you turn on the news and that's always the first news story. Who's dead and where?
It's like Camden, New Jersey and St. Louis, Missouri are always high on the list for that.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I mean, people, you don't need to be afraid. I mean, even whenever we were making national news in Ferguson for the riots, I went by there. I was close by. I didn't even see anything. Yeah. So, it's all perspective, I think. If you're in the thick of it, I suppose.
Yeah, that's just it. There's certain neighborhoods you just want to stay out of. And if you just avoid those neighborhoods, you should be fine. Yeah. There's a lot of great activities going on downtown St. Louis, and
it's a great place to live. I mean, it's cheaper and to live here than a lot of places, maybe because of the murder, I don't know, but and it's convenient for the most part, although I did sit on Highway 70 yesterday for about 25 minutes that I didn't want to, but I
always remember the loop around St. Louis 270 was always a road rally. It was just there's the slow lane, then there's the next lane, and then the next lane is like 20 miles an hour faster, and the last lane is like the Autobahn.
Right, exactly. It's still that way.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and now we got 255 and so forth. It's that way, but with bigger potholes. I think that's my opinion.
Absolutely. Now let's get back to what you do. What exactly is Static Radio about? How did Static Radio all begin?
So, what it's about? That's a good question. I've always tried to come up with a clever answer. My most clever answer is it's a 20-plus year conversation between me and my co-host over the years. But it all began because we were in college together down at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale. And we actually were both film students. So I have a film degree. But I also did radio. I did the student radio down there. And we did a show, and we didn't call it Static Radio at that time, but it was what the show is. And so we would do a show, and we talk, we play music and then talk about kind of funny things that happen to each of us throughout the day. And then, play a song, tell a story, do some other stuff. And so once we graduated, a few years went by, and I'm like, we should let's do the radio show that we used to do. We can do it online because I know how to do this. And so Miles said, sure, well, let's go ahead and do that. But it was at the time of Napster. And so we just cut out the music and kept the stories.
There you go.
So each week we talk a little bit, and generally either one or both of us tell a story, and then the other person basically pokes holes in it or makes fun of it.
Let's talk about your cohort in crime. Let's talk about Miles.
Yeah, Miles is the hilarious thing. We both went on. We have never lived near each other than when we were at college. He's actually from Chicago, and the suburbs, he was more of a rich kid, and then I was toward the poor end of the spectrum. So it's kind of funny going through life, and then now I think it's flip flopped a little bit financially for us, but. And he always likes to bring that up. He goes, back in college, I had all the money in the world, and now what happened? So but he's a good guy, but we both didn't. We both got film degrees, creative degrees, but we've all gone off into other areas of work. Because that was just the times, I guess. And we didn't, I always wish, you've had a career that I always wish that I probably should have pursued. But the problem was, number one, I didn't think my voice was good enough. And number two, a lot of times, and you probably had a tough life, you have to move a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of movement. I was in the Air Force for 20 years too, so I was kind of preprered for that.
Oh, so you were used to moving around. Yeah, I haven't moved very much in my life. I pretty much, my mother still lives in the house that I grew up in, and so forth. And so, that whole moving around stuff was not something that I really wanted to experience. And,
well, you could blame it on the food of the region down there, because there's a lot of great food, a lot of great barbecue places. So that would be one of the things is like I would gravitate for.
There you go. Yeah. But I just didn't want I looked at it and I'm like, that seems like a much harder life than the one that I've set myself up with. So I'll just do this as my, kind of side project. And
plus, the other thing, the other thing, Bob, is there's no money in radio.
Yeah. Well, there used to be, and now it's kind of gone.
Yeah. Well, like I was told when I first got into this, 80% of the money is made by 20% of the people, and that did hold true through my entire career. Tell you what, let's talk about something in regards to, you started this in 1999. Mm-hmm. And a lot of things have changed in the world of technology. How has that altered what you do on your show? Obviously, when you get a chance to see the video of this, folks, you're going to love this, because I'm actually talking to an animated character here, and it's just great. So that's one adaptation of the change in technology. Yeah. But going from just posting something on a website to having streaming to where it goes anywhere in the world, how has that changed your show?
Oddly enough, it hasn't changed the show very much at all. Technology hasn't influenced the show as much as far as content goes, other than maybe I talk about Zoom calls more than I ever have in my life.
Oh, yeah.
We have gone through the iterations of everything. So when we first started, I got a book from a friend of mine, How to Program HTML in 7 Days. And that's how I made the first website.
Wow.
I read the book and I did it. And it just so happened my employer at the time, unbeknownst to them, had a server that I had access to, and so I could post everything I wanted to.
Oh, geez,
because at the time,
that's nice.
You had to have a good amount of space to put audio files of any kind onto the internet, and that wasn't. There was no GoDaddy at the time for you to have cheap space. And so I had access to a server, and I had access to something called Real Audio.
Know it well. I even paid the $5 to get the professional.
Well, I had a Real Audio server at my disposal, and so I was able to serve up audio back in '99. So. I still have Real Audio files on this computer somewhere.
Son of a gun, gosh.
They're useless, but so it just kind of all came together, to have access like that. And then for a while, oddly enough, our show was out on QuickTime before MP3 became the standard, because they didn't re-up the Real Audio license, and so that I didn't have that anymore.
Wow, yeah, QuickTime,
to
gosh.
move off of.
How about QuickTime?
So we did our shows in QuickTime format, and then MP3 kind of came to the forefront, and so we've been in that ever since that became standard. A lot of changes, but it literally was just kind of a click and get situation, and I would just change the link every week for the listen. And you would click on listen, and it was, and you get it. But yeah, so now the big thing is that I think the next big change, we did it on the phone. So I would have, I had long distance charges all these years, where I had a speakerphone that I got. And I had a external microphone for my computer, and I would put the microphone on top of the speakerphone. Miles would be on the speaker. I would be in the room, and it just recorded both simultaneously, obviously. And that was our recording method for, probably a good 6 years or so. And then Skype came along, and then I started experimenting with Skype to record. And at first, now there's all these plugins and everything. All these kids got it so darn easy.
Yeah.
Back in the day, you had to figure out how to get that audio off of these things. So, but we did Skype for a number of years. I did Skype, and he did the telephone. So that was a whole other variant. Because he's not quite as technically interested or savvy as I am. And so I had to try to figure out all these things to to keep it all connected. And then now, I mean, we do like, we're using Zoom. We use StreamYard, which is another thing. There's something called Clean Feed I've used. I've used all kinds of different things. So, and it just depends on the purpose. What you're trying to get, the result you're trying to get. I'll use whatever we need to get that result. So,
very cool. I love how technology has changed. I'll never forget there was a sidebar project that I had when I was working at the All-Star Radio Network. It was called Back in the Pits, and that's when I was covering the National Hot Rod Association. And I'll never forget taking 2 tubs of microphones, microphone cables, mixing boards, a mini disc recorder. I had all these things that I would have to have. And when I did my final shows, it was just a microphone that actually had the SD card in it. It was one of those Zoom microphones. They were just going back and forth like that. What a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, I love those little Zoom handhelds. Those are great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what unusual topic, what do you say is the most unusual topic that you and Miles disagree on?
Oh, my. Oh, that we disagree on?
Yeah. Is there something that you guys agree on, or is it?
Oddly enough, we probably, I joke, but we probably agree more than we disagree overall. But the funny thing is he loves to be contrary. And so no matter what position I take, he always likes to take the other one.
The point counterpoint type thing. Yeah.
And just to be a jerk, really. I mean, let's be honest. But no, I think the funny thing is we both went to film school and we both have a background in, kind of analyzing media. Right. And so the hilarious thing is we are not anywhere together on that aspect, even though we went through all the classes together and everything. And we were just talking last night about movies, and I'm like, the movies he watches, I'm like, why are you even bothering with this? And we get in little arguments about popular culture because I just cannot understand why he would waste his time on this. And then he does the same for me because I watched a French movie over the weekend. I was telling him about it. I'm like, I watched this great French movie from Luc Besson, who was a French filmmaker. And he's like, who? I'm like, oh my Lord, what is wrong with you? Didn't we go to school together? And then it gets the whole thing going on. And so I think that's probably one of our bigger disagreements is that he's definitely more mainstream popular culture, and I'm probably a little bit more esoteric. There you
go. Very good. It's nice to have that difference, though. If everyone agreed with everything, it just it wouldn't be fun. It wouldn't be entertaining.
No, and I think that's also part of it. We're also both, on a lot of subjects, we're a little bit off from each other as far as what we deem acceptable or not acceptable, and so then that always gives the charge. But it's not so much that we're against each other. It's very friendly.
It's good. You should go, Miles, you ignorant slut.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. I'm like,
from Saturday Night Live.
What in the world are you doing? Yeah. I'm always giving him grief about his choices. I'm like, why would you bother? Or, he didn't. Have you seen Renfield, by the way? There's a movie with Nicolas Cage called Renfield.
I think my wife has
Nicholas
watched
Holton.
it. Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was very clever, and then he hated it. And I'm like, what in the world? So, yeah, I mean, that's just the kind of...
So it is it's a lot like a Siskel and Ebert type thing, huh? Yeah.
Yeah, but I think those guys really hated each other. I don't know.
Now, before we continue, I hope you're enjoying the podcast. I want you to check us out online at Someoneyoushouldknowpodcast.com. There you're going to find our recent news, our archive of past episodes, and a whole lot more. Plus, if you're visiting for the first time, we invite you to leave us a review. It's down on the very first page, very bottom of it. Give us a review. Let us know how you think we should improve the show or what you liked about the show. And we are so blessed to reach over 1,700 cities around the world in 80 countries. We want to salute a couple new additions, the Cape May, Maryland, Tucson, Arizona, and Sadat, Morocco. Thanks for tuning in. And the Someone You Should Know podcast, heard wherever quality streaming audio is available. We're talking with Bob LeMent of Static Radio, which is about to celebrate its 25th anniversary here. We'll talk about that in just a couple of minutes. But in your bio, Bob, you said that your main focus ranges from current events and pop culture to foreign trade and e-marketing to pizza taste tests. Broad spectrum there. What do you enjoy discussing the most? Obviously, we were talking about movies a few minutes ago, but...
Yeah, as far as the most, I don't know. That's a good question. I love to talk about just about anything that folks want to talk about. I think that I have at least some knowledge in popular culture, present and past, and ideas on the future. But I also love to talk about, just weird topics, high strangeness that's happening, and I love to speculate on things. Speculation is probably one of the best things you can do in media, if you ask me, because you don't need to have any proof. You don't need to have anything to back it up, and you can just kind of say what you want. But
it's like being a statistician.
Just make it all up, and as long as you kind of defend your position slightly, you're going to be okay. I'd say those are probably the main things. I throw these other things in because I'm kind of being facetious with my bio thing there, because I like to. A lot of people put in there's so many things on business and marketing and things like that I a little bit of ribbing on that.
I know. Yeah, everyone seems to be doing the how to improve yourself,
right. How to sell your brand. What's your brand?
Mm-hmm.
So and pizza. I love pizza. So I mean, and obviously you've been to St. Louis, so you know the pizza.
Emo's Pizza. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I love thin crust pizza. I mean, I like Lou Malnati's up in Chicago. I've been there, so. I mean, pizza is kind of one of those universals that I think there are very few people that don't like pizza, and those people generally are have some kind of other personality issues, I would say. Mm-hmm. But we're not going to point fingers.
There you go. Well, we could debate something here. Best barbecue in St. Louis.
Best barbecue in St. Louis. So you already mentioned one. Mm-hmm. On there. So
Pappy's Barbecue, which is right down the street from where I used to work. So when I would drive in the morning about 7:00, the smokers would be going, all that smoke would be wafting over down to the studio. It's like, okay, I know where I'm going for lunch, but
I'm blanking on the place now because it's gone. But there used to be this little barbecue place near University of Missouri St. Louis that was all right.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you remember that. It was down. It was not necessarily.
It was by Umsel. Okay.
Yeah, where you want to go on a daily basis, because it's down Natural Bridge. But down Natural Bridge, and I'm blanking on the name of it because it's been gone now for.
Wow. You ever make it to Sugar Fire? You ever make it to Sugar?
Oh yeah, Sugar Fire. I've been to several times, and Bandanas.
Bandanas. Here's one for you. I used to get off the radio at 9:00 or something like that on a Saturday night, and my wife would call in an order to Bandanas, and they'd be waiting for me by the door. Already paid for it and everything like that. So we'd end up sitting up watching TV in bed eating Bandanas barbecue, which I absolutely loved. The fun thing about barbecue in St. Louis, they're always rivaling. So another one that they used to have a couple of locations was Super Smoker. Super Smokers,
yeah. Super Smokers, yeah. Yeah, there used to be one in Edwardsville, Illinois, over here on the east side. Yeah, it wasn't close to campus there on Edwardsville, SIUE, but they're not there anymore either. But they moved once, and then they kind of closed down after they moved. Yeah. So it was. I'm thinking. I want to say it was Red's Ribs.
Yeah, Red's. Yeah, it was on 162. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, Red's Rib. Yeah, okay.
Red's Ribs on 160.
My memory's not failing today. So it was pretty good too. I liked it for the East Side stuff. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Now let's get back to the show here a little bit there. Static radio. If a person from my show was going to tune it in for the very first time, what should they be prepared for? Should they be prepared for?
Oh boy! If you tune in this week, you might be prepared because it's a little bit raunchy sometimes.
Oh no! Okay.
But not always. I mean, the funny thing is that we run the gamut because we both had children, right? And so over this last 20 some years. We've had kids and raised kids, and so some shows are just all about kids, And then there's some shows that are just, well, I'll tell you one that was recently was about ticks and about finding ticks in different parts of your body.
Oh, jeez.
Miles had been out in the woods, and he came back in, and he basically was examining himself before in the bathroom, and he found a tick in a very intimate place.
Oh, jeez. Oh, jeez.
Well, actually, behind a very intimate place.
No.
So you never, I mean, we actually say it, but so yeah, you never know. So the funny thing is, since there's been, early on, there was not, it was Wild West, so nobody did anything, but I've always do the explicit on ours, just even though we not always touch on that, because I don't want to take any chances. So I don't want anybody walking into anything, because some weeks it's very benign. I talked about the weird sandwich shop I went to, where they closed up at 3:30 out of the blue on us while we were eating. And, and then next week you're talking about ticks on your person. But typically I would say, I don't know. It's good. I would say I'm probably a little more on the more conservative side of mine, and Miles is a little more on the outrageous side. So
I'll tell you, there's a phrase I used to use when I was doing a show in Guam many, many years ago. And I'll let you borrow it if you like, and it's static radio, where anything can happen and probably will.
Yeah. The idea is we tell the story, and so who knows what the story is going to be. Yeah, this week I got attacked by bed bugs.
They weren't Miles ticks, were they?
Yeah, but I didn't. Yeah, bites were all on my arm. But it was this horrible realization.
Where did you go on vacation? Where did you go on vacation?
I was on vacation. I was for work. I was traveling for work, and I was in. I'll give you the city, but not the property necessarily. But I was in Springfield, Missouri, at an old Hojo. It wasn't a Hojo anymore.
Yeah.
And it was actually a fairly nice hotel. It had been redone and so forth, but I heard there was an old Hojo, which I just love saying Hojo for some reason. But and then I wake up and I noticed these spots, and then I called, FaceTime my wife, and I'm showing her. I'm like, what's going on? Have I got, am I allergic to something? And she's like, oh no, you got bed bugs.
You're going to sleep outside until we can get this all taken care of.
For me, that was, it was traumatizing. I can tell you that. Wow. I travel quite a bit for work, and so I've never experienced that. And so this is the first time. And the wild thing was they put me in a suite for some reason. I don't even know why, but I was in a suite. It was very nice. I had all these amenities that I've never normally used to, I was telling Miles, like I had two TVs and then a TV in the bathroom and behind the mirror. Have you ever had that?
No, not a TV in the bathroom. I mean, I've done it in the house, but I've never had it all too.
They have a mirror, and then you turn on the TV, and you can see the TV through the mirror,
nice.
And then you turn the TV off, and it's a mirror. So it's super fancy. And then I got bed bugs.
Very cool, very cool. We went to one over Labor Day where the luxury was having towels that weren't damp.
That's lovely.
Okay. Hey, you got your 25th anniversary show coming up. Any idea what you got planned for that particular anniversary?
We have gone through these things, to be honest with you. Before there was even the word podcast, and I figured we would have quit this. So we went from 99, and then podcasting came out in 2003. And I thought for sure that we wouldn't continue. And we did. And so then we've always had the 10 years, 15 years. Now we're up to 20. I'm like, I don't know. We've never really done anything for any of them. And so I don't know if I should for 25 or not. I mean, maybe I should, but then half the time I'm like, we're both kind of lazy. So it's it's just kind of like, yeah, okay, 25. We'll mention it, but maybe we won't do much other than that.
No, what you need to do is put the idea in maybe one of those AI generators and let them come up with a show for you.
They'll be like, buy your sweetheart candy and flowers. It always misinterprets these AI things.
Oh yeah,
are not quite. I mean, it sounds great, but getting the result that makes sense sometimes is not always there. So I've fiddled around with them.
All right.
I did a thing with the picture thing for show art. You always have to do show art, right? Mm-hmm. For this whole thing. And I had this weird dream about Conan O'Brien's last show. And I wanted to have the AI generate me some show art. And it was the worst thing. I used it anyway. It's out there, but I was like, this is nothing. I typed in all the, kind of my TV guide synopsis of my dream, and it came up with the most horrible show art we've ever had, probably.
Good Lord. Let's give you some social links. So when we get ready to when you're coming up on this 25th anniversary show, we want to definitely check it out. Social links. What would be the best way to reach out to you and find out a little bit more about Static Radio?
So if you go to any of the socials, pretty much if you look for at Static Radio, that'll be us for the most part. And I always say, with apologies to Static Radio, the band in New Jersey, because they are Static Radio NJ, because I've been able to get all the Static Radios before them. So they're kind of I think they're probably angry with me. But on every show that everybody asks me, I always say, you can go check out Static Radio, the band, at Static Radio NJ, but we're just Static Radio. So Instagram and Twitter and all that good kind of stuff. I mean, I think TikTok, we were a little bit late to the party, so I think we're Static Radio 4. Mm-hmm. But everything else is pretty much just Static Radio. And then you can go listen to us at staticradio.com. So
awesome. Very good. Very good. Any final thoughts? Final thoughts before we close up shop for today?
This is fantastic talk. I'm trying to remember. I'm racking my brain because I know I listened to K-Hits at some point if I've heard your voice. Yeah. So, just being in St. Louis and at the time, I mean, that's fantastic. I'm really happy to get to talk to you, and I wish I could remember. I wish do you have a tagline that you always say?
Well, okay, it's nice. Back in the day, it was the greatest hits of the 70s. And then it wound up being the greatest hits of the 70s and 80s. And then it was 70s, 80s, and 60s.
Oh, yeah.
That was kind of confusing. And then at the Bowl, it was just 93.7 The Bull. And St. Louis's best country, it was 92.3 WIL. But they changed that numerous times. And now it's I don't know anybody who's there.
Did you ever do the remotes with the Bowl? Oh, I know the remotes.
I was only invited to one remote, and that's because we had a very pretty young lady that would love to they would like to have her versus an ugly jock do it type thing. But for WIL, I was all over, from one car dealership to another, to supermarket openings, to this particular thing and another thing. But I loved St. Louis because it was so easy to get around. It was in my case, if I wanted to go as far as Riverport, or whatever it's called this week,
right?
That was usually
paid for that.
That was the farthest part, was to go to there, because we have to take 255 to 270 and ended up over there. But I loved a lot of my years in St. Louis. My daughter still lives in St. Louis. She's got a band in the local area called Sisser. They're fabulous.
Fantastic!
You'll have to look for them. They'll have to look for them. But thanks, Bob. Thanks so much for being on the podcast, man. I really appreciate that.
Oh, thanks for having me, and thanks for talking about stuff. And everybody, take care out there. And hopefully you'll come back and listen to this again with the next guest, and then maybe you'll come over and listen to us as well.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for tuning in to this episode of the Someone You Should Know podcast. Before I go, I want to share some friends of mine who also have a podcast. Give them a listen, and I invite you to check us out next time right here on the Someone You Should Know podcast. All right, here's my friends right now from the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast.
Hey, everybody, it's Ray the Roadie.
And this is Hollywood Mike
with the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast, coming to you from the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum on Route 66 in Joliet, Illinois.
Where once a week we are interviewing local musicians and singer-songwriters, and the podcast itself covers a wide range of topics, including, but not limited to, the history of rock and roll in Chicago, the current state of the scene, and the challenges and opportunities facing musicians today.
So join us every Tuesday for a new exciting episode of the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast.